Genesis 12, God calls Abraham. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto the land that I will show thee, and will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy a great name, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curse thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abraham departed, and the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abraham took Sarai's wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all the abundance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go on to the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. And Abraham passed through the lands onto the palace of Sichem until the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land, and the Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, Unto thy seed I will give this land. And they buried he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from hence unto the mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he buried an altar unto the Lord. He called upon the name of the Lord. And Abraham journeyed, going on still toward the south. And there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass when he come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai's wife, Behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is not his wife, and they will kill me. But they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abraham come to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was very fair, and the princes also of the Pharaoh saw her, and commanded her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into the Pharaoh's house, and he entered Abram well for his sake, and he had sheep and oxen, and he asses and men servants and maid servants, and she asses and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And the Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why did thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister, so I might have taken her to be my wife? Now, therefore, behold thy wife, take her, and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, that they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. When you turn the page from Genesis 11 to Genesis 12, you're crossing the single most important structural boundary in the Old Testament. Everything you have read so far, chapters 1 through 11, is called primeval history. It dealt with the entire globe, cosmic origins, and humanity as a whole, ending in the total disaster and fragmentation of the Tower of Babel. Genesis 12 completely flips the script The cosmic wide-angle lens suddenly snaps into an intense, intimate close-up on just the ordinary childless couple Abram, who God later renames Abraham, and his wife Sarai or Sarah. This begins the ancestral history, chapters 12 through 50, and sets up the entire plotline for the rest of the Bible. Here is the deep context behind the massive transition. To see how brilliantly the literary design of Genesis is, you have to look at the contract God offers Abraham in verse 1 through 3, right after the collapse of Babel. Let us build a city. I will make thee a great nation. Let us make us a name. I will make thy name great. At Babel, humans tried to force their way into heaven to make a name for themselves. It resulted in a curse that fractured humanity. In Genesis 12, God walks up to an obscure nomadic herder and says, "Stop trying to build your own empire. Trust me. Leave your home, and I will give you a great name. And through your family, all the fractured families of earth will be blessed." In verse 1, God gives Abraham a staggering command: "Get thee out of thy country and form thy kindred, and from thy father's house unto the land I will show thee." In In the ancient Near East, your identity, safety, and economic survival were 100% tied to your patriarchal family network. There were no police forces, international passports, or banks. If you left your father's house and walked into the wilderness, you were exposing yourself to immediate death, robbery, and enslavement. God doesn't give Abraham a destination or a map. He just says, "Start walking and I'll tell you when to stop." Abraham's obedience here is framed as a monumental act of radical trust. Abraham packs his tent with his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and journeys from Haran, modern day border of Turkey and Syria, down to the land of Canaan. Tech drops a tiny but ominous historical marker in verse 6, and the Canaanite was then in the land. This tells the reader that the land isn't sitting empty, waiting for Abraham to move in. It is already densely populated by the Canaanites, the heavily fortified descendants of Ham's curse lined from Genesis 9. Abraham is a vulnerable outsider wandering through hostile territory with nothing but a promise from an invisible God.